A fair coin is tossed twice. What is the sample set of equally likely outcomes? What is the probability that two heads are tossed, and what is the probability that no heads are tossed? All right, so we know that when you flip a fair coin, there's actually only two outcomes, right? You can either get heads or tails. Now, but this is only if you flip the coin once, right? What happens if you flip it twice? Well, you can get heads the first time, but then you can get a heads the second time, right? So we're going to call that heads and then heads, or we can get heads and then tails. Similarly, you can get tails the first time and heads the second, or tails the first time and tails the second time, right? So if we look at this, right, there are four equally likely outcomes. You can get a heads and then a heads. You can get heads and then tails. You can get tails and then heads, or tails and then tails. Okay. So what is the probability that two heads are tossed? Well, there's four outcomes, and out of these four outcomes, only one of them has two heads, right? So the probability that you toss two heads, in this case, is going to be 1/4. Okay. What is the probability then that no heads are tossed? Okay. Well, let's take a look. Out of these tosses, right, which ones have no heads in them? Okay. One of them does. Okay. So the probability that there's going to be no heads is also 1/4. You notice, okay, that wait a minute, the probability of getting two heads is 1/4. The probability of tossing no heads is actually the same as the probability of tossing both tails. Okay, so I mean, we could have asked the question that way. It's a little bit tricky, right? But you have to remember that in this particular experiment, right, there's only four possible outcomes.